All right, Rebel, kick us off so we can get him, so we can get him going. Because I don't want to take up too much more of his
Welcome
time.
to the Colored Pages, y'all. My name's Rubel Kazi.
Oh, is that me? Oh yeah, that's me. I'm the black man, Bishop Bar Jabari A. Lucas. We have a special guest with us today. We want to thank God for an honor and receive gladly a bright young filmmaker, Elijah Doumbia. Say what's up, Elijah.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah, we're excited to have him. Go ahead, Rebel. Let's talk
Elijah
about it.
Elijah released a short film, but a movie called The Black Suicide Agenda, where I'm not even going to attempt to try to summarize it. I don't even want to go into a summary. Let's just go right into it. Elijah, tell us like the type of place you were in, like mentally, just approaching it, and like, I guess what inspired the ideas.
Yeah, so I 3 years ago I created a short film, and it was more of a project, if you would, for college. And I called it A Lame Excuse for Suicide. It's about like 10 minutes. I wouldn't even recommend anybody check it out. It's very project, school type of, thing. But I did that, and looking back on my YouTube channel and seeing like my past movies and stuff like that, it made me want to like, do more, cinematic content. And since I haven't did it in a while, I wanted to challenge myself to do a more uh, like a legit short film, like a legit, short film type of movie. So I sat down and I started writing ideas and whatnot. And I came up with the idea of the Black Suicide Agenda, which is about a young man who deals with past trauma, and he wants to start a new beginning. And there's themes of mental health and the paranormal, and happiness, what it means to be happy, as well as being relevant in 2020. It's very much a 2020 movie. So I wanted to have these themes intertwined in the movie, and yeah, that's pretty much what I did. And then I came up with the whole concept. It was a lot of trial and error. Like I had to change the title a lot of times and whatnot, and change different aspects of the movie. But it all came together, and now it's out on my channel.
Yeah, on that note, because as Rebel was talking about before we started recording, every word, everything you did was very intentional from what we gathered. Yep. So the first obvious question is, and we gotta help some of our unmelanated brothers and sisters out there who may be watching. The Black Suicide Agenda. That word agenda yep. implies a plan. Whose agenda is it? What do you mean by that?
So in the movie, there's a character who commits suicide, and our main character Seidan doesn't know her name, but he keeps dreaming of her. So a very familiar but eerie presence in his dream that he now realized something bad happened in the apartment he used to live in. He pretty much he finds out through his dreams that she's very unhappy with her with life, and it's more so because of like what's going on in the world in this year 2016 2017 with police brutality, white on black crime and whatnot. So she's very fearful. She's very much of an outcast too. She doesn't have many friends. She's I guess a weird person. And so she rathers killing herself than fearing that she's going to die in the hands of a white man, more specifically like a white police officer. she has experienced in the past people, you know, killing her family and stuff. So she has a stronger connection to you know, like, you know, what's going on in terms of Black happiness and the white man killing, you know, the black people and whatnot. So she's at rock bottom before right before committing suicide, and you know, that's pretty much where the title comes into play. It's her agenda. It's kind of like her story that our main character is living in and finding out about, and it's very much her spirit and whatnot that brings out this creepy, eerie vibe to the tale,
Mm.
that just ties to like what's going on in the world. Like I said, in 2020,
Mm.
you know, even in the pandemic, you know, it's very much relevant in the story. But yeah, it all ties back to this suicidal girl.
And the way I kind of interpreted that is, while like there is that paranormal theme you mentioned before we started recording, like there really is that paranormal theme that you're hinting at, that you wanted to go in just your filmmaking craft. But in what way is that telling of the greater themes and ideas that are so pervasive in the world? Like the way I interpreted that, it's like, yes, it was her spirit causing that eeriness in that in the room, but in what ways is that kind of like the vestiges of racism and through police brutality? But how is it like those like historical vestiges? What primitive accumulation, as Marx would call it?
Yeah.
What is like?
I would say to that question, I would say it's more so like because let me see, it's like, how do I phrase it? She's not a bad person. She's not. The character Seydon is more of a bad person, if you will, if you will. He he's just coming out of, you know, coming out of a dark place. Like he's been in a mental institution for years, you know, living there for a long time. And so he's very much of a shell with no soul. So he's a walking like vessel, like very you know, unsure of himself, very empty inside and whatnot. And so you know, the spirit with that the suicidal girl, you know, comes into play. She uses his body almost like a vessel, because he's so like dead inside, because he's so empty, he's not happy. So he doesn't really have much inside. So that's like perfect for her to feed off of and manipulate. So that's kind of what I was going for in the sense. She's not too much of a bad person. She is weird. She does do weird stuff. She could be looked at when she was alive as a weird bad person, because she, you know, owns a gun, because she has like these weird goggles, because she has like, you know, these weapons, and she plays herself and, you know, wears mask and whatnot, and wears these weird dresses with like yellow shirts that don't look good. Like she comes across as a bad weird person, but she's not. And so you can kind of question who's the bad guy, and it kind of is Seydon. But I like to have that interpret. I like people to interpret, you know, how they want to.
I wanna pick up on that, because to me, I kind of had the opposite viewpoint. I thought of Seydon not as a bad person, but as, like you said, a confused person,
A vessel.
corrupted by a vessel. I love the way you put that, as a vessel through which this. I called it a daemon. You called it a spirit, but it's the same thing.
Yeah,
This demon. This,
that's what I'm. Yeah.
right. This daemon. This demon. This spirit. I say daemon because like that's the way the Greek spelling is, but whatever.
Amon.
Well, Draymond Green. The way the daemon like possesses him, corrupts him, and like the demon represents not just like her isolated experience, but it represents what happens when all hope is lost, when despair comes into the picture and destroys our concept of morality and meaning. Morality and meaning to, we've talked about it in other episodes, like are hand in hand. And like we see what happens toward the end of the film, what happens when it totally consumes somebody. It destroys our self-image. And I think you did a masterful job at showing that. And once our self-image is destroyed, as you know, Dostoevsky writes in Crime and Punishment through his main character, like when there is no God, all is permissible, all is permissible. And when we have no self-concept, when we have no meaning, and when despair takes us over, our moral compass is destroyed, and we're willing to do whatever and whenever.
That's really deep. I love that. I love that a lot.
I thought you did a masterful job at portraying that specifically. And go ahead, Rebel. I have some other questions about the way the demon was characterized too. But go ahead, Rebel.
Well, I think before we even get there, let's get through the themes you really tackled in the film. I feel like in the beginning of the film, you're coming out of the forest, or you have a dream that you're coming out of the forest. What was that forest? Because that was the only time we see the forest, right?
Yeah.
Started in first person. And I know, again, incredibly intentional. You used every part of that 23 minutes for a reason. So why the forest and why first person?
So the forest, interestingly, I wanted to be, and it was kind of harder to tell it, but I wanted that to be the place where the suicidal girl actually committed suicide. I was going to have that in the story, but, you know, that still is where she committed suicide. He doesn't really know how she killed herself, but
cause of death
it wasn't the forest. Right. But, you know, all he knows is she lived in the apartment he lived in, and that she left like a bag of like, you know, items like notes and, you know, weapons and stuff that was like under the floorboard or whatever. But she actually killed herself in the woods, like behind the apartment complex. So that was the place where she died. And as for the first person, I wanted the dream sequences to be very, very much personal, kind of like you're dreaming, like you're visualizing something, you're the person. I want everybody to be Seidon when the movie started. I wanted people to, like, you know, open their eyes and be confused just as he was. So that was the reason why I did the first person, and that was the reason why I decided to shoot the beginning part in the forest. I wish I elaborated more. If I had a longer time with the film, I could have explained that a little bit better. But yeah.
I think it really was masterful the way you use that first person too, because it happens one other time in the bathroom, right?
Right.
Yeah, one other time when he's in the bathroom, but we'll get there. All right, the dialogue, and then I want you to take over, and if Jabari has anything to say. In the dialogue, I have a few quotes that I'm gonna just say out, or like phrases that your mother said in it. And I just want you to kind of break them down and tell me why and where were you thinking with the dialogue, and how do you see these phrases or themes rather play out later. So like I heard, and then we'll go into the song choice too. The hospital, the crazy house. You are happier in there. You're just finding faults. Emphasis on just finding, intentional again. Just finding faults. Happiness is the goal. You were just controlled in the hospital. What you're going through is just anxiety. And you just got out.
So
those are really good quotes.
Can I throw another one in there? I want to throw he constantly the mother saying to him, "You got to be happy."
Yeah,
that was really important. I felt too.
Yep. So with the dialogue, and shout out to my mom too, my actual mom, who filled in that role for me. She did an amazing job. You know, I couldn't have casted a better person.
Yeah, that was real. I could tell that was your mom just by the way you interacted. It was natural. It was natural.
Right. I wanted my mom to be very very realistic. I gave her the lines to deliver, and you know, I told her to use her own wording and stuff. And we did multiple takes. She even came back and forth because she lived in Richmond. I'm in DC. So she would come back and forth and make these trips to shoot these scenes. And I think she came like 4 or 5 times. The thing is though, I wanted her character to be very, I wanted people to, when they watch it back, they realize that she's down talking him a lot. Like I wanted people to know that he doesn't feel happy, and she's very much while still being a mom, she's very much talking down on him, saying it kind of like it's all in his head. And
Bell, we talked about that, man.
Yeah, so I wanted it to be like she's not as good as she seems, and not justifying her death, spoiler alert, but I wanted it to be
I didn't want to say it because I thought that twist was so smart, and I'm glad you said it. Now we can talk about it.
I definitely wanted her to be very much of a circle character, like that. Is that the word? Not a square, right? A circle that has like, yeah. I wanted her to be circle. So yeah, I didn't want her to be sugar coated, clean and very, motherly and whatnot. So yeah, that's why she said what she said.
So the way I interpreted that is in that same vein, but I feel like I'm like hitting at it on a different angle. It's like the way, and we talked about it before we started recording, but how it's like normal, like the lack of normalization of mental health issues. The broader theme is mental health issues.
Right.
That's
she
like
almost, I was going to say, she's almost like making fun of it too.
Yeah.
So she's like, jokingly.
The discourse of
mental
health issues, like as it is, like incomplete, wrong, as it's not normalized. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's very much like it belittles mental health issues as if it's not an issue in the first place.
Right. 100%. Yeah, I really wanted her to be very much of a realist in terms of people that don't really take it seriously. I wanted her to portray her role as somebody that understands what mental health entails, but at the same time feels like her son, who's been in a mental institution for 3 years, and prior to that, not having any mental health issues that she knows of, to be coming out of that as a new, I guess, fixed person. So she's very much undermining him a lot, and I joking, but at the same time, kind of like, doing a little bit of a low blows and whatnot. I wanted that vibe to set the mood for the story, and to, like, again, not to justify the ending, but to like show you how the ending came to play too.
Right. And when Rebel and I go ahead, Rebel.
Before, because I feel like this is the chunk, but I gotta ask this because I feel like this is the segue into it. Why the only song you played in the heart of the film, it was Mr. Rager by Kid Cudi. Why'd you pick that song? And how does it fit that dialogue?
So I'm not gonna lie to you, the song choice was more so because I used it in my past movie that I'm tying with this one. I used that instrumental. It's like a 4-minute short film. I won't even call it a short film, a short project. And I used the instrumental for that whole movie, and it ties in with this movie. And I wanted to nod to like my past projects by doing that too. But at the same time too, it kind of like, looking back on it, while I was editing and stuff, it showed that, he's not as happy. And the song is very mellow, like melodramatic type. So it kind of fit with what I was going for. But yeah, it was mostly because, say it again?
I think the lyrics even fit exactly. Like, you feel like knocked down round for round. You're feeling like you shot down on the ground. When will the fantasy end? Like the nightmare, the issues. When will the heaven begin? That happiness, right? And
Yeah.
like,
It definitely told the story too. Like I definitely, used it, and the right parts of the song too. Like I chose how much I wanted to use, and what I wanted to use, and like how it all came to play and whatnot. But for the most part, it was mainly because I did use it in my past movie, and I wanted to tie it in, like a nice
yeah.
little nod. There's a few nods if you go back, but I don't recommend it. If you go back and see some of my past short films, you'll see like little nods to that. Yeah, in this Black Suicide Agenda movie.
I want to go back to the dialogue for just a second, because like what I have written down when I was taking notes was, toxic positivity, and that's kind of
Yep.
like this soft like term, but it's really important, especially like we talk about application of sort of the takeaways of the film to our real life. It's like toxic positivity is so important to understand and so important to avoid when you're talking to and dealing with loved ones,
Right.
because like when Rebel and I were on the phone talking for hours before like we even set up the Zoom call and everything, just discussing the film, like I said, like the mom is supposed to represent toxic positivity. And like
100%.
our first reaction was, well, no, the mom's not supposed to do that. The mom's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be this nice, caring, loving person who always knows the perfect thing to say. But
Mm-hmm.
like that expectation with the reality of what she actually does within the confines of the film kind of adds to its poignancy, because it's like, right, like that's exactly why toxic positivity is so toxic. When we are struggling with our mental health problems and we come to people and we want to talk to them and talk out our problems, the
Especially when it's your
absolute
mom.
exactly when it's your mom, like someone who's supposed to take care of you, or your
Right.
best friend or whoever. It's like the last thing they should do is minimize and downplay, and
Right.
to just say you'll get over it. You got to be happy. These are just anxieties. You're making stuff up. You're finding faults.
You'll be all right.
You'll be
Right.
all right. And it's like that's real. It's real in so many ways, because people who don't really struggle with mental health as much, number one, you will at some point in your life. Number
Right.
two, like if you haven't already, it's like it seems natural. It seems like the right thing to do to just say it'll be all right. But it's actually counterintuitive. What you have to do is kind of meet them and accept the premise that something's wrong and talk it through with them so that they can work through the problem and not just repress it and ignore it.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so
100%.
so the mom like not doing that kind of goes to how real it is that our friends and family, the people that we put on this pedestal for being able to take care of us, are oftentimes the people who fail us, and it adds to the element of pain that we feel when we're having mental health crises.
100%. 100%.
But yeah, I thought that was well done too. Should we talk about the suicide note, Rebel?
I think that was exactly where I was just gonna go. All right, so can you tell us what was on the suicide note and why? Because it was very much a pushback to that toxic positivity. Can you tell us what it said?
Yeah, it said the white man won't take my life. Happiness is a myth. Black people are deceased, and it wasn't in that order, but that's what the note said, and it said we now rest in peace. Pretty much, like I said, she's a weird artist. She went to our art school. That's the vibe I was going for. We're all like the art people. So she writes poetry. She does notes. She loves, writing. She was into literature. She wanted to be, an author. She loved to write. She loves poems and stuff. But she has this poem, like this saying that kind of like made her who she was, and had her philosophy. That was her philosophy for the movie, for her motives and whatnot. She feels like in this day and age, she will die in the hands of a white man. She feels like 100% she will die from the hands of a white man. So, in order to get that fear out of her, she rather her kill herself when she's ready, when she feels like her time is up, than to die in the hands of the white man. And she feels that you can't really be happy in this day and age. It's almost impossible, especially if you're a Black African American, especially. So she feels very depressed, very stressed out, very unsure, and I guess very, very cold-hearted. Like she feels very, very cold inside. She doesn't really have any friends and stuff. Her sister goes to another school, which I'm gonna make another movie, but that ties into this movie or whatever. But
Wow.
her sister,
Y'all stay tuned.
her sister goes to another school and whatnot. She doesn't have friends. She doesn't have many people. So she's very, very much a lonely, sad person. Leading up to her death and whatnot, and she just had her rock bottom moment, and one day went outside and took her life. When she was ready, she took her life.
The way I interpreted that note, this was actually like watching it again, my second time around. But the way I interpreted that note was it seemed like a pushback against the mother, but it's not her mom. You know what I mean? The mom saying you got to be happy, but then happiness is a myth, right? And it's almost as if through that self-inflicted death, that is happier than what life is.
Right.
That's the root of despair, right? To feel like death is better than any alternative here on earth.
Right.
Because you replaced you said rest, but I felt like rest in that moment could have been it could have been rest / happier or happy.
Right.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think that. How do I say this? The part about the white man kind of relates back to Don's development too, and I think like that suicide note, obviously, in the way that you've drawn out the plot, it's kind of like the nexus between this girl's experience and what's going to happen to Don. Because this girl is suffering from what the academics might call internalized racism, to put it very nicely. And now Don is going to struggle with it too. And it's going to be that same demon that tormented her that's now going to torment him.
What draws the suicide girl to Don is the similarities between the two as well. They're very much the same in terms of motives, dreams and aspirations, even down to being the outcast. The fact that Don, is very much, thinking about, what's going on in the world. He's always looking up, stuff that's going on in terms of police brutality and, things of that nature. That stuff draws her, and she kind of feeds off of that type of vibe. Not only that, in the film, the goggles is more, I don't know if you guys noticed, but that's like a vessel.
It was. So, and I was gonna ask about that, but go ahead.
Yeah, the goggles is definitely a vessel that possesses like the evil spirit. As long as he has it, he'll, that spirit will find him and mainly him, and then feed off of,
Why goggles?
I love it. I think, can I go ahead, Elijah? You answer, but the way you said that, it's a vessel. Goggles are the eyes, what you see through. We're looking at the world through white eyes.
Is that why you chose it? Because that's what we're thinking.
Yeah, I did. So, exactly. I really wanted the goggles to be very much of, like I said, a vessel to house the demon. The reason why I chose the goggles was mainly because I wanted something that you can like put on and like, like visual, like you can see. I didn't want glasses. I wanted, goggles. I looked at different, at first I looked at glasses and whatnot. This was years ago, but I came across these goggles at a party store, and I felt like these were perfect. They were like weird and quirky and whatnot, and I felt like it would be like the perfect thing I'm looking for in the film and whatnot. Like it's very, you know, I can't explain it. It's just very, it's weird. It's weird goggles.
So in that same vein, I feel like there were multiple like vessels, like type of
Yeah.
like, objects that you use as the creator, like 100% producer, writer, everything. Like you used a few different props as vessels. So the goggles was definitely the real one.
Yeah.
But also there was the bed sheet, the white bed.
Yeah, we got to talk about that.
The white bed sheet, the Christmas lights.
Yep.
Then even down to the gun.
Yeah.
And so was the knife he used? He used a knife to kill his mother, correct?
Yes, that's the knife that. Well, no.
He sliced his throat with it in the dream.
Correct. Yeah, the knife actually he doesn't own. Yeah, it's all in his head. It's the girl's knife. She had it. That was her knife. And what was the question?
But so why? Like, what do each of those vessels mean? Bed sheet.
Oh yeah.
Light and the gun. Because that was her. He had her gun, correct?
Yeah. That was her gun. The only vessel was the goggles. The reasoning, the sheet and the lights and whatnot, that was Sadon's. That was all his. The goggles, housed the vessel. So like when he looked at it and then threw it on the blankets and whatnot, it kind of was like the whole thing became like the entity, like the spirit became, because it was all together. It was just a coincidence. They were all powered together. And that was like in his head. But yeah, the only real thing that held the spirit was the goggles the whole time. That's why like in the beginning, the car, you see like it's focused on the goggles before like you get to like see like the mom or like Sadon or whatnot.
Right.
To tell people that hey, there's something wrong with that. Even in the monologue part, Sadon was talking about how he felt like something was like not right when the car was pulling up. Like he just felt like this energy that he didn't feel comfortable with, but he still got into the car because what else is he supposed to do? So the goggles were like the main thing too, and that's like my logo. So like the logo,
yeah,
like yeah.
So I want to kind of go to the goggles, talk about or tease out this particular angle, and it kind of relates to the specific claim in the suicide note, which is basically Black people will never be happy. And like,
right.
I feel like white people, when they hear that, are like, oh, these Black people are just exaggerating. And I think in a way, maybe this was intentional or not. Like, it's one thing to talk about things like depression and anxiety, but it's also another thing to like use the words crazy, because that's like, that has an element of like delusion,
right.
sort of like you're misperceiving the world in some fundamentally pathological way. And it's
right.
like, when you say things like, oh, Black people can never be happy, I think white people in their head kind of think, well, that's pathological. Like, that's crazy for you to think that. But yet, like with these goggles that you've already explained, not only house the demon, they house the internalized racism of having to look at ourselves through white eyes. Like, that's how we go crazy, which I thought was really brilliant. We go crazy by constantly projecting onto ourselves impossible expectations. We're not good enough. We're not smart enough. We're not this, we're not that. Or constantly projecting on ourselves like criminality. We're bad people. We're immoral people. Putting on tropes from a white racist world that justify police brutality. So when we see ourselves through these goggles, we start to think of ourselves as the lies that the white world tells us. We think that those lies are the truth, and we start to act accordingly. When you think that you're a bad person, you're going to abuse yourself. When you think that other Black people around you are crazy, you're going to do things like what happened at the end of the film.
Spot on. Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
I thought that was really, really well done.
And I agree. And the way in which the screen came in at that
Right.
end scene with the webcam,
Yeah.
laptop. And you said earlier part of your inspiration was Black Mirror, and you did it kind of
Yep.
twice for real, because there were two screens, your phone screen,
Yep.
and then there was also the laptop screen. But in the laptop screen, you really saw that reflection where he was having that dream of internalizing what he did.
Right.
And I felt like, at least the way I interpreted it, is exactly what Jabari said. It's that it's through those lenses, you also see your lens of yourself.
Yep. Yes. That's exactly what I wanted. Yeah. I wanted people to like to see like that, you know, this guy who we just saw was being attacked by himself. You know, like in all actuality, there's something a little bit deeper wrong. Like I wanted people to think like, oh, like is he being possessed, or is it like mental health? Like is he mentally unstable? Like what's really going on here? So you know, when he's looking back on the footage that was recording that he actually set up himself that he don't recall, it's kind of like it dawns on him that, you know, there's something really wrong. And you know, he starts, you know, thinking, and then he realizes like, you know, well, was everything real? Like, is everything fake? Like what happened to my mom? Like, and then he makes the call and stuff. He realizes so I just wanted him to feel very very drained at the end, and very emotional too.
Yeah. So the bed sheet that he puts on, is that a
Yes.
Klan reference?
No, it's a reference to Halloween.
Okay.
I knew it wasn't a Klan. See, that's exactly what I said. I was like, Elijah would have put the
a
point.
reference.
He would have
to
had the
Halloween.
point.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I
should have done
that.
that.
Was my thought process. My thought process was like going on like the racial
I
analysis
like that,
of it. I thought, because that's the way I thought of it. But yeah, okay.
Right.
I think a big question for me that's kind of left is, why wasn't he having the dreams in the facility?
Because the goggles weren't with him. The goggles are the vessel, yeah. She goes into his body, like she manipulates his brain, like it's very much a bad demon, an evil spirit, like inside of him, manipulating his thought process and whatnot. Without, you know, with him being away from the goggles, there's no way that she can manipulate his thoughts and whatnot. That's why once he gets in the car, like he immediately, you know, falls asleep. He has a nightmare. He's confused on why he hasn't had it in years and whatnot. It's not until he to the house to realize his mom had brought him the goggles that are not even his.
I was just about to say that. What's the significance of your mom giving him the goggles? The mom giving him the goggles.
Yeah.
Because I feel like she's like, me and Jabari always say this, but it's the discourse. Like, I feel like the mom is in itself that
passing
discourse.
down.
Yeah, passing down. Like, it's that discourse that's giving you this lens to hate. Like, you're not necessarily the one, like, because I feel like white America really pushes that narrative of like, oh, this self-pity is terrible. Like you need to pull yourself up by your bootstrap. But it's really like their lens that's creating that image. It's not from their self. It's not, it's like, you know what I mean? It's something foreign that they have internalized.
Yeah. I would say with the mom, she very much, I did think of that when, you know, she gave the goggles to Sedan. You know, she has the goggles in the car, like, you know, so she has a presence to her, but it's not like all the way there. The suicidal girl is not that much, you know, vibing with her presence per se. She's more attached to like an empty vessel, like Sedan's character. But her handing the goggles to Sedan kind of shows you you know, like you said, like she's handing down like you know, the demonic spirit to me intentionally. You know, so that's why we did a lot of reshoots. Like I had to call her back to do that scene where she gives me the goggles. That was like weeks after, you know, the car incident and whatnot. So it's a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of, you know, reshooting and seeing what works with the narrative and whatnot. But ultimately it worked out.
Yeah. I want to ask. So, with all of that being said and done, how integrated this is, how complex this is, how I think really intentional this work was. You know, what are some of your influences? We talked about this before we
Yeah.
recorded, but we picked up on some very well placed and I think pretty revealing clues as to, you know, who might be your main influence. But, you know, for those who haven't seen the film, like, who's your main influence when you were doing your piece here?
Influences, like
Yeah,
who, what, and why inspired you?
right.
My biggest inspiration was Jordan Peele. Jordan Peele definitely gave me a huge you know, boost in filmmaking confidence that I very much needed. I had to you know, rewatch his work. I love Us, even though it's not like people's favorite when you compare his two recent
I
works.
watched it when it came out.
Oh
Yeah,
my God, I love Us. Yeah, and then Get Out, of course.
Like, what are the
But
dreams looked like that could have been a scene
in Us.
from the
yeah,
movie Us?
thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. And also Black Mirror. Black Mirror, you know, I love Black Mirror. I've been watching it for years. That definitely helped me out with this film. I've been wanting to do a Black Mirror type of film, even more Black Mirror than this film, for like for a while now. So
This
hopefully I
was
make a
totally
straight
Black
up.
Mirror, man.
Thank you, bro. Thank you.
This was, yeah, this was
I hope
there.
I make, yeah, I want to make more in this type of realm in this universe and whatnot, because I want to build upon the universe. Sadon is still alive. Um, but yeah, those two in particular, the Black Mirror creators, um, Jordan Peele, and that's pretty much my biggest inspirations, I would say.
Okay. Well, I mean, like I told you before, if you feel free to tell me to shut up, but like I said before we were recording, I could sense that this came from a really genuine and deep place with your own personal experience. Like,
Yep.
was there anything going on in your life that kind of really helped you to dig deep down into the emotional aspect of this project and really kind of pour out your heart and soul into it in a way that's not just purely intellectual or academic?
Yeah, most definitely. A lot of people don't really know, but while I was shooting the film, you know, from day one up until the final scene, I was going through a depression, and it was very much hard for me to you know, not only you know, act in the project, but to sit down and edit the film and to make it you know, how I envisioned the film to come out. It was very much a tricky process to grasp and whatnot. And um, you know, it took a lot of you know, meditating and just like, you know, breathing. And I had to talk to people and whatnot, but it was super hard. At one point I wanted to stop everything. I was like, I'm wasting my time. I'm like pouring my heart out on a project that I feel like nobody's gonna take seriously. It's probably gonna get like, you know, let's say 100 views on YouTube, and you know, it's gonna be just another video. Um, but I stuck with it. I kept with it. You know, and it was a chore. It was definitely a chore. You know, people would tell me that, you know, when you're feeling that type of emotion, pour it out in your art. It'll only benefit, you know, that said art in the long run. So in terms of my acting and in terms of you know, my directing, you know, telling my mom what to do, or you know, telling my girlfriend who plays the suicide girl what to do, you know, and editing the film and whatnot. I had to really be, you know, I had to really pour my heart out in the project and let people know what I wanted. And I feel like it ultimately worked out, but it was very, very, very hard to do. And I'm super grateful that people are like appreciating the process and whatnot. So that means a lot.
Yeah, man. The process is where it all comes from. You know what I mean?
Right.
You can't look at the end in isolation of that process.
Right.
It really shows, man. It really shows in your end product. It's a phenomenal film. Like it's a thinker. It makes you feel a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's that introspection that Jabari keeps going back to.
Yeah.
It felt personal, but it also felt fictional in that same regard too. So it had that perfect
mixture.
Yeah, like the balance.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was
Mm-hmm.
it was really beautiful, and really proud of you.
Thank you.
And I'm grateful that you would even join us and talk to us about it.
Yeah, no, I'm grateful you guys asked me. Like, I'm super grateful for that. Yeah,
no,
seriously, man.
We gotta support each other out here because
100%.
We're engaging in conversation and trying to really like when you were talking about the depression before we recorded, I just got like I felt it because that's real for all of us. I feel like we're all, especially now with the coronavirus and Donald Trump being the chump that he is, and all of the craziness going on in the world. It's just, we all are dealing with so much, and we're trying to desperately, at one time with the economy, especially our particular age group, trying to find, find a job. Shout out to the episode we did 2 weeks ago about, economics and, trying to make sense of this mess that we have. And it's a really emotional time. And like, we do ourselves a disservice because like I think we all just get so focused on, the academic, if you're a student, or the career-oriented occupational work, if you have a job, that we don't get the opportunity or the chance to express just who we are and how we're feeling in the moment. And it's very important. This is why the arts are so important. This is why, hell, just having a friend is important, because you've got to be able to talk to people about these things. And you have to have that avenue, because if you don't, then we're all just sort of in a world of trouble. And we don't appreciate just how much emotional well-being and psychological well-being really impacts everything else in our day-to-day life.
100%.
So. And you did a great job throughout that film. It's that
Thank
art
you.
for real. I feel like the older you get in America, at least, like that's all I can speak for. But older you get, the less in tune with your art you get, and like I think that hurts. Little kids get to do it all the time, and they're always happy. And like in that same way, like we as young adults, but then also people navigating in the most different world that's ever existed, the most fast-paced, technologically advanced, but in some ways, like intellectually, I don't want to say inept, but out of tune. We're in a new realm, right? And we need ways of interpreting it, internalizing it, and making sense of it. And I think your film does a great job of that, but then also in its simple case, just being a good film. Like just you know what I mean? There's that balance again. Really, it's just it has to just be a good film. And like you did a phenomenal job, man, for real.
Really, really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you want to say? Because I know we got to let you go. You have some big things going on in your life.
Yeah, I do. I got a niece that was born. Yeah. No. I'm super grateful you guys had me on here. This is like my first real interview about my film. So I really, really appreciate
Hey man,
it.
anytime
It means a lot.
anytime we can use our platform in any way, shape, or form to help and advance our people, man, it's the way to do it.
Exactly.
It really is just the way to do it.
Nice.
And
I love it.
we don't have the biggest platform, but it's qualities.
And it's
Right.
growing.
It
And
is.
It's growing.
I can tell.
Yeah. And
Right.
if you ever, with your next content, if you're playing on something else like this, like just come our way, man.
We watch it.
Thank
And we
you.
watch it. You got two
Thank
new
you.
fans. I'm subscribed with all 8 of
Nice.
my
I really
Google
appreciate
accounts.
Hey, that's what I want.
We gotta get the numbers. We gotta get your numbers.
Real quick,
Right,
shout out
right.
your social media.
Yes, follow me on Instagram at Elijah Doumbia, ElijahDoumbia. And then
We'll
you
put
can
it at the
add
bottom.
me
Yeah.
on Facebook. All right, and then add me on Facebook. And then yeah, you can follow me on Twitter if you want, at Elijah Doumbia. Yeah, nice. And then subscribe to my YouTube channel, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and that will be in the description in the video as well. We will get your numbers up because
Yes.
people need to get out here and support you and look at this film. It's 23 minutes. We thoroughly enjoyed it.
I don't know
Really
if,
appreciate it.
I don't know if you
Sure.
said it in the beginning of the podcast or just like the footage beforehand, but it is a 2020 film. Like it's
Yeah.
2020.
Yep.
It's a film of our times, and it takes a very special person and a special artist to do that. So, like, thank you for creating it, but then also thank you for just being here with us.
Absolutely.
Of course. Thank you guys so much.
All right, Rebel, what's our tagline? I forgot it.
I forgot our tagline too. God on top.
Well, God on top.
There's that one.
We got stay wordy, stay nerdy, keep our pages colorful. That's the corny one. And rice. That's right. What does that stand for? All the people with hurt feelings over anything that we might have said over the past 40-some minutes. What do we do, Rebel?
Rest, ice, compress, and elevate.
Elevation.
Nice.